So greetings and welcome to today's educational program, Management 2.0 for Practitioners and Managers by Forrest Breyfogle. This is your moderator, Doug Wood, with ASQ's Quality Management Division. So today we have the distinct pleasure of hearing from Forrest Breyfogle. Please join me in welcoming him. He's an ASQ Fellow and CEO of Smarter Solutions. He has authored over a dozen books. Mr. Breyfogle was named Quality Professional of the Year in 2011 by Quality Magazine, and in 2012 was awarded Alumni of the Year by Missouri University of Science and Technology. He received the prestigious ASQ Crosby Medal for an earlier book, Implementing Six Sigma, and the 2013 Lean and Six Sigma World Conference Leadership Award as well. And so without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Forrest Breyfogle. Forrest, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Doug. I'll be covering a lot of ground in this webinar. In this session, I will describe a Management 2.0 system that, in my opinion, all MBA schools should teach and all nonprofit and for-profit companies should use. In this webinar, I will describe the concepts from a quote-unquote big enchilada perspective. That is, I'll be presenting the integration of many techniques that provide much organizational benefit. However, I do not want you to think that what I'm presenting is too much for your organization to swallow. Do you eat a big enchilada in one bite? Obviously not. You start eating an enchilada with one small bite. Similarly, that is what should be done with the presented Management 2.0 system. Typically, an organization needs to start implementing a small portion of the presented system and grow from there. In this session, I will be challenging concepts taught in MBA programs and SPC 101. I can defend all claims made in this presentation. If I make a statement that does not set well with you, make a note of the statement and slide number. We can talk about your issue with my statement either in the question and answer section at the end of my presentation or offline after this webinar. If I mention a concept that you can relate to, that you think your organization can benefit from, note the concept and slide number. This concept application design could be discussed in the Q&A session or after this webinar. I ask that you do not turn yourself off to a described concept thinking that my company leadership would never buy into such an approach, or this approach will not work because the described methodology is not consistent with a current company policy. Often, the most beneficial organization change is policy change, which is fair game with the Management 2.0 methodology described in this webinar. During this session, I suggest that you picture yourself as a CEO of your organization or company that your consulting firm works with. You should then make as CEO the decision that if you could wave a magic wand and have the described methodology in this webinar implemented in your organization in the 6 months, would you be happy? If so, then the task becomes how to get buy-in at the right level in your organization to make the described Management 2.0 deployment happen. After this session, attendees will be able to describe how to select process improvement projects that benefit the big picture. Use the benefit from a detailed clickable to make project execution roadmap so the best Lean or Six Sigma tool is used. Use and benefit from free metric reporting software that can provide a predictive statement where, if the futuristic statement is undesirable, this metric improvement need pulls for the creation of a process improvement project. How to best show and quantify an improvement project's benefits. And then finally, how to create and benefit from the 2.0 business management system, integrated enterprise excellence. The agenda I'll be following is shown. The first agenda topic is discuss the source material. One book that will be referenced frequently in this session is Management 2.0. This book is available in paperback, audiobook, and Kindle format, where the Kindle format can be read on any device with the appropriate app. The other book that will be referenced in this section is Leadership System 2.0. This book too can be referenced as a paperback, audio, or Kindle format. During this session, over 20 clickable references are provided in Appendix A. During this session, I'll be making reference to many of these clickable references. The next agenda topic is applying a free software app for creating 30,000 foot level process output tracking charts. Web page 13 provides this free software where someone can create a 30,000 foot level chart or a high level chart of the output of a process for their set of data. Again, there's no charge for utilizing this app, which is listed on this page. To explain this app, I'm going to be applying the technique to the recreation of figure 9.7, 9.8, and 9.9 in Management 2.0. Now, before illustrating the application of this free metric app, I'll discuss 30,000 foot level reporting for 3 types of process output data. Now, the first situation is for a continuous response. So let's consider an organization wants to track expense that they incur every month. So first, what we want to do is we want to determine if our process output or expense is from a stable process. So the way we do that is we track this particular metric response monthly in an eye chart. If the process has no values that are above the upper and lower control limits, we say our process is stable. If this process is stable, then could say the process is predictable. The next obvious question is, what do we predict? So what we do is then, for this continuous response, plot the raw data on a probability plot. If the line is straight, then we believe the distribution that's the probability plot represents is a good fit for our data. When that occurs, with 30,000 foot level reporting, a prediction statement is made at the bottom. When there's no specification, what is reported is the mean or median and 80% frequency of occurrence. So for our particular situation, we would estimate that our expense each month would be about $100,000, and 80% or 4 or 5 months would be between $90,000 and $110,000. Now, it's important to note that the eye chart is a technique that's taught in SPC 101. However, this is not a traditional control chart application. We are not trying to control anything. We are simply looking at the output of a process from a high-level point of view. So the next situation I wanted to discuss relative to 30,000 foot level reporting is an attribute response. So for this particular situation, we're examining non-conformance rate over time. Now, in this non-conformance rate tracking over time, we are not tracking the data using the P-chart. A P-chart can have issues. in that from a 30,000 foot level perspective, we need to consider that the variability between subgroups can affect the control limits. This does not occur with a P-chart. Hence, we're using an individual's chart to assess stability from a high-level point of view. Now, the third situation is dealing with subgrouping. So let's consider we're looking at the lead time from 4 different facilities that we have, and we're examining the lead time that it takes from an order receipt to actually sending the order out to the customer. Now, we in this organization deliver on the weekends. However, we do not fulfill as many orders as we do throughout the week. Now, Monday tends to have longer lead time orders because the weekend immediately preceded Monday. So we don't want to react to Monday's lead time as though it's a special cause. So because of this, we will subgroup lead time by week. So consider that we have one lead time delivery value for one product that we delivered every day of the week, which could be from any one of these 4 facilities. And give her a subgrouping. Now, the important point to mention is we're not doing an X bar and R or X bar and S chart, because those charts do not consider the variability between subgroups as a source of common cause variability, which is really important in IEEE scorecarding. Then if the individual's chart for the mean and the standard deviation chart both do not show any points beyond the upper or lower control limits, then we say our process is stable and predictable. Now the next question is, what do you predict? How you do that is take the raw data and plot it in a probability plot. For the probability plot shown here, we see that it's a straight line, so we believe the normal distribution is a good estimate for making a prediction statement. In this case, we have an upper specification of 192 hours. So from this probability plot, we estimate about 16.4% of the time we are going to be beyond 192 hours that we desire as the upper limit. Now in the next slide, I'm going to show you how to access a free 30,000 foot level charting app for creating these 3 report outs. So to access this web page, you would simply go to the link that's provided at the top of the page. Once you do that, you'll eventually get to the chart builder that I'll be showing you in the next, in just the next short period of time from now. You'll be able to similarly create 30,000 foot level reports for the response from your process for continuous data, both normal and log normal situation, and attribute data. Click or access the app link that I described earlier on the PowerPoint slide. You would get to a page that looks like this. Now what we're going to do to illustrate application of this software is I'm going to evaluate some data sets that are provided in Management 2.0. Now, what is shown here is the raw data to create these 30,000 foot level reports that are shown in the book Management 2.0 and Leadership System 2.0. Now in this webinar, the 3 data sets that I'm going to focus on is, one is expense. What you see is a monthly reported expense value. So we're going to be tracking expense over time with our 30,000 foot level creation. Now the next chart I'm going to be evaluating or showing application of this app is non-conformance rate. As you can see, we have a non-conformance rate reported over time. So this is a data set I'll be referencing when I apply this app. Another data set that I'll be examining is lead time. As I noted earlier, for this particular subgrouping situation, we're looking at lead time for 7 days a week. So it's week ending days. So we got 7 values for October the 7th, 2018, and then the next week ending date is October 14th, 2018. So when I clicked on these particular data sets, what happened is there was a download to our computer of the data set. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this expense download. If we scroll down, we'll see a snippet of the upper left-hand corner of the spreadsheet. This particular app can analyze several types of data. It can look at no subgrouping, attribute, or time series data. So for our particular situation, we have only one value for each month, so therefore it's not subgrouped. We next want to select the column, which is expense. So we'll see a 30,000 foot level response for this particular metric, in other words, expense. Now we can have specifications for this report out. So we'd simply change this to, so that's we're going to say is our upper spec limit, so to speak, and our lower spec limits will be 90. So from this we see that we have a non-conformance rate of about 20% that are beyond these two limits. We can add some niceties to this particular graph. We can say we want to track things and it's monthly. We can also add a title, call it expense. We can add a Y response, which is dollars. We can also add an X-axis label, which is month. If we scroll up the page, we'll then see all these entries were put into our 30,000 foot level chart. If we were to right click, we could save the image as a PNG file. So this PNG file could be referenced in a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document. What I'd like to now is reload this page and then analyze or create a 30,000 foot level chart for another situation. And we're not going to look at non-conformance rate. You scroll down, again we can see the upper left hand corner snippet of this particular Excel spreadsheet. Now for this particular situation, considers to be attribute data. What we're going to be plotting is the non-conformance rate. Now this app is written in R. This is not an Excel add-in, but R likes to replace spaces with periods. So that's the reason you see a period inserted in the column. But you'll notice that our spreadsheet has a rate but we're reporting out as a percentage. So we want to change that attribute type to a rate value. So now you can see the rate that we are reporting is about 4.045 proportion, about 4.5%. So if this response is not satisfactory, we need to make improvements to our processes. This again is a Y, and we need to improve the X's that lead to the Y value that we're showing here. So that's what's really important with all our 30,000 foot level charts. Now again, reloading this particular page, and then I'm going to be talking about the other file that we uploaded, which was this lead time, or excuse me, which was lead time. Okay, so if we look at this lead time value, then we notice the upper left-hand snippet of our particular data set here. Now, for this particular situation, we have subgrouping. So we're going to examine lead time. And we're going to have a subgrouping column is going to be week ending. Now in this particular case, we do have an upper spec limit, and that's 192. So you can see for this particular response, we have 16.4% as an estimated non-conformance rate above 192. If we don't like that answer, we got to do something different to the process. Now we're going to be discussing how we could improve this particular project or process output later in this presentation. I'm going to be returning now back to my slide deck. So I showed you how you should be able to now be able to create a 30,000 foot level report response tracking for the output of your processes. Next, I'm going to be describing the 9-step integrated enterprise excellence business management system and its benefits using a PDF article. Now, normally when I conduct a presentation, I like to share with people the 1-minute video, which provides a high-level view of 30,000 foot level reporting and its benefits. This video will not be shown during this webinar because of webinar recording technical limitations. However, the viewer of these PowerPoint slides can view this video. Now, the PDF article that I mentioned earlier that I want to walk through is shown here, along with the associated web page link. This article is also included as figures within Management 2.0. Now this table that's shown below is from page 2 of this article. Now what I often do is I start with this particular slide and I ask people, do you have any issues with any one of these points that I highlight here? And people typically say, well, Forrest, I don't have any issue with any one of these points. I have issues with all these points. Well, IEE flattens all these issues. So if you are to implement an IEE system I'm going to describe, you wouldn't have you would be able to achieve the effective management attributes that are listed here. I'm going to begin walking through various figures that are described in this article and that are elaborate more on in the article and the book itself. So this is an actual red, yellow, green scorecard. It's not fabricated. So with red, yellow, green scorecards, you can monitor the output of a process. If a process is colors green, we say it's okay. But if it turns red, we say, oh my gosh, somebody needs to work on it and get somebody down there. And we want to bring it back to green. However, in reality, we can have a toggling as shown here between red and green, and nothing has basically changed. Why does that occur? Well, often what happens is we set goals within the normal variability of the output of our process. And that can give us false triggers, that we think something changed and it didn't. A while back, I was discussing this red, yellow, green scorecard along with the 30,000 foot level metric tracking alternative to it in a presentation. And someone made the comment, said, well, Forrest, the color for my metric was green, but then it changed to red, and it changed back to green. But I didn't do anything. And I, with a smile on my face, answered his question, which was, what should I do? I said, well, take credit, of course, with a chuckle. He said, but work on a process improvement effort because it's going to invariably change back to red. Another type of output that's presented often in leadership meetings is a table of numbers. Now, what invariably do you get from this form of reporting? You invariably get stories. So a presenter may say, such and such metric went up or down compared to the previous month or a similar month in the previous year. Now it's interesting, another presenter to the same table of numbers could pick another metric and make a similar statement. So you get these stories, but what are you going to do with them? It could take a lot of effort to put together this table of numbers, but it is to have value. And I'm suggesting it doesn't have much value. So both red, yellow, green scorecards, this table of numbers, and the two additional actual scorecards I'm sharing with you are doing what I call management to the Y. So the output of the processor Y is a function of its inputs X's. But when we just look at the output of the processor Y in a table of numbers format, we tend to go in and try to manage to the Y. And that can lead to very unhealthy, if not destructive behaviors. So I'm going to be suggesting an alternative approach. Now, the third example of an actual scorecard is the one shown here. Now, this one's a little bit better, showing time series data, but what are you going to do with it? I don't know, but again, it's management to the Y. Another figure that I'm showing here is, again, it's an actual scorecard, is looking at the data from 1 year's time. Well, the question I ask of you, do you believe that the last month of the fiscal year to the first to the next, there's going to be magically a major change? Well, I suggest not. It's from the output of processes. So processes don't magically change between fiscal years. And secondly, what happens if you made an improvement in June or July? Well, if you're looking at data using this format, you really wouldn't know. So you would like to look at things differently over a longer period of time. So that's what I'm looking at in the next figure, is how we might look at this set of data or this situation from a 30,000 foot level perspective. Now, what I did to create the next chart is I asked the company if I could have data from a longer period of time. So they provided that to me. So this is what the 30,000 foot level chart looked like that I created. Now notice it has a point that's outside the limits. So technically we could say it's not predictable. However, our EPRS metric software can override that statement, and we could say it's predictable, because sometimes we can have situations where data points are outside the limits. That's just occurred because of chance. So again, if we don't like this answer, we've got to do something different to improve the process. So I like to have this farmer reporting throughout the organization. But how do I do that? Well, I'm suggesting you can do that using an IEEE value chain. What's shown on this slide is an example IEEE value chain for a hospital. The functions across the top that are connected by arrows, these are the primary functions of the hospital. Voice of the customer, sales and market, deliver services, invoice and collect, and report financials. The support functions are shown below. I venture it's a safe statement to say nobody goes to a hospital for their housekeeping. It's important, however, it's not a primary function of the hospital. Now what you'd like to do is create a drill down of this enterprise value chain. And you like to make it clickable, so anybody in the organization could actually have access to this information. So I'm going to be demonstrating what that might look like with these drill downs. So in the upper right-hand corner of this graphic, you can see the enterprise value chain. So let's pretend that we click on Deliver Clinical Services. So this would be what you would get. Now the top swim lane is the output of the process that we would like to track relative to quality, cost, and time. Now the bottom swim lane represents associated processes with this particular function. And the idea is we have y as a function of x, where if we don't like the output of y, we need to change the x's. That's the process or inputs to the processes below it. Now that's not how organizations typically manage. Often, as we saw with the red, yellow, green score and table of numbers, those are the y's output of the process. And those might figuratively be managed by people in the north wing of the building, and the processes are managed by people in the south wing of the building. And guess what? They don't talk to each other. Well, that's an issue. So the value chain brings it together. Now again, I mentioned we want to make this value chain accessible to everybody that has authorization, from operational personnel to the CEO, where they can click on 24/7 metrics and the processes. And we like to also have 30,000 foot level metrics automatically updated. Now the other nice thing about this particular value chain approach is we don't have fear of shooting the messenger. Perhaps someone in the low or level of an organization may notice an operational problem or a metric that has issues, and they're concerned about escalating the issue of the chain of command, because they feel they might get shocked because they're the messenger. Well, with an IEEE value chain, it's all presented there. It's complete transparency. Now, figure 8 in the article describes what a drill down of enterprise process management would look like. Now, what is shown in the top swim lane is the 9 steps associated with integrated enterprise excellence. So the first step of this business management system is describe the vision and mission of the organization. Now the second step is describe the value chain, which again describes what an organization does and how it measures what's done. You want to include satellite, those are financial metrics, and 30,000 foot level metrics as we described earlier in the session. Thirdly, I want to analyze the enterprise. Well, obviously I'm going to examine, when I analyze here, the value chain output metrics. The second thing I want to consider is the voice of the customer, which hopefully is much more than just simply a Likert scale. Third thing might be there are constraints to see if we've got any bottlenecks. Maybe that's in marketing or it could be in operations. A fourth thing might be looking at the competition. And the fifth thing could perhaps be examining the economy relative to what we do. Then the fourth step is establish SMART. That's specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time-based, satellite, or financial metric goals. For example, monthly profit. Now, when we establish these goals, we don't want to look at a goal for next month. We want to improve the average monthly reported profitability, for example, or profit margins. Because in order to improve the average value, we got to change our processes. Now, the fifth step is create strategies. Notice how strategies are aligned to improve the financials. A while back, I was conducting a session in Bolivia where I was speaking to managers about this IEEE system and the creation of strategies. When I got to this particular point in my presentation, one manager commented, he said, "Forrest, we just create our strategies which were aligned to our vision and mission. You want to align it to the financials." I said, "Well, which one really makes more sense?" After some discussion, they could see the value of aligning their strategies to the financials. Step number 6 is to then identify high potential improvement areas that we want to work on and establish the related SMART 30,000 foot level metric goals that are associated with it. Now we need to highlight each one of these 30,000 foot level metrics should have a process owner. And we need to make improvements. Now which particular metrics you want to improve? Well, that's shown through an Enterprise Improvement Plan, or EIP, which I'll be sharing with you just in a few minutes. But again, there's an owner of that particular metric in the value chain asking for that project to get completed because they're going to be reported to their boss's boss every month or every quarter. And then 7, we want to identify and execute these projects in the EIP. What I'm suggesting is I want to improve the 30,000 foot level metric, and if you're going to use a kaizen event to accomplish that, that's fine. If you want to use a Lean Six Sigma, the make roadmap, that's fine too. If you want to simply do Deming's Plan, do check act, that's okay with me. What I really want to see is a demonstration of an improvement in the metric that's going to help the big picture. And the 30,000 foot level metric that's going to make that happen. Now, step 8 is to show the benefits, for example, of a staging of a 30,000 foot level chart. That's shown in the EIP how it aligns to the goals, and that's great. I'm from Missouri. I want to see the benefits of this particular project. That is, because Missouri is a show-me state. Then step 9 loops back to step 3. So we've got somewhat of a Deming Plan to check act with this IEEE system approach for the enterprise as a whole. Now what you notice in the bottom swim lane is an enterprise improvement plan. And that's what I'm going to be discussing next. So if we recall, step 1 is the vision and mission, step 2 is the value chain, step 3 is analyze, step 4, 5, 6, and 7 are shown here. Notice how projects on the right-hand side of this figure is aligned to the goals, the business goals on the left-hand side of this figure. And along the way, we've got a particular function that's going to be working to improve that particular metric that's associated with that project in the time that we shown or we want to accomplish the change. Now let's examine the results from our EIP effort to reduce wastage. We wanted to reduce wastage by 10% in 10 months. Now we talked about wastage earlier in this PDF. So now what I'm going to be sharing with you is what I'd like to see relative to improvement. So this is a 30,000 foot level metric for wastage. Again, this is not fabricated data. And you could see that we achieved our 10% improvements in the time that we desired. We'd like to see this sort of activity and results for all the focused 30,000 foot level metrics who are trying to improve. Now what I just gave you was a high level view of what the IEEE system is all about. So the IEEE system is built upon the concepts of many previous methodologies, and it's described in the book series Integrated Enterprise Excellence that's shown at the bottom of this page. Now the next topic on the agenda is selecting an improvement approach to enhance an organizational IEEE value chain 30,000 foot level performance metric. Now if we were to go to Chapter 9 of Management 2.0, we would see some text that's related to an improvement methodology shown in Figure 9. Now I know this figure is somewhat small, and I'm going to be blowing it up here after a couple slides. We could also, if we progress further down in this particular improvement chapter, you'll see some dialogue that's related to Figure 9.2. So as promised, I'm showing a blow up of these two figures. Now notice how in actually working on improvement projects can use different methodologies. If you got, for example, a low complexity issue, I'd simply do a kaizen event if you know what the solution is. If it's highly complex, then the solution is unknown, then you might need to do a Six Sigma analytics or maybe a design of experiment. Now on the right-hand figure, this figure takes a little different perspective on what you might do to make improvements. It's looking at a tool utilization for making improvements. So you might use a DOE, or you could do Plan, Do, Check, Error, or whatever. If you progress further down Chapter 9 in the Kindle version of this Management 2.0 book, you would see Figure 9.3. Now, Figure 9.3 makes reference to the smartersolutions.com/roadmap, which is available as a clickable web page. In the next session, I'm going to be walking through application of this IEEE DMAIC roadmap. So we're going to again apply the IEEE clickable Lean Six Sigma Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, Control DMAIC roadmap. I'll blow up this figure 9.3 is shown here. Now, you'll notice how I have additional drill downs for the measure phase. Now, in my book, Implementing Six Sigma, which was published by Wiley in 1999, I made reference to this particular addition to a traditional DMAIC roadmap. Now, why did I do that? Well, I tried to align the tools in the phase that GE did relative to the DMAIC roadmap. Well, they had, that is GE, and flow charting, cause and effect diagram, cause and effect matrix, and FMEA included in the measure phase, which to me, those really weren't measure phase tools. So I added wisdom of the organization as a drill down from the measure phase. In addition, I added planned project, baseline projects, and measurement system analysis. In a later version of that book, I added lean assessments. So I have lean in this overall roadmap in both the measure phase and the improve phase. Now I'm going to be using this reference app, and you'll see in this, this reference, not app so much, but it's a reference link in this smartersolutions.com page. This clickable navigation to this roadmap. So when clicking through this roadmap, what I want to do is describe how you might make improvements to a metric. So the metric I chose was the lead time that we spoke about previously. So the baseline for the Y response for lead time is shown on the right. And what we want to do is navigate through this clickable roadmap to determine the X's that we might improve to improve the Y response. So now what I'm going to do is access the clickable roadmap, smartersolutions.com/roadmap. So now we're access that roadmap that we talked about. If we were to click on define, you'll see many of the statements that are similar to what you might have seen in traditional Lean Six Sigma training. If we were to click on baseline, then what you would see is, in particular, statements 3.2, which provides the 30,000 foot level approach for actually how you could assess stability of your process. If you click on 3.3, then you'll see a tree diagram that describes what you might have relative to determine capability of process. As you'll note, I'm not a really big fan of CP and CPK because that can have issues. We talked about, now, in Lean, we could click on Lean. Well, you notice that we might create a value stream map if that helps us to improve our project's response, our 30,000 foot level response. But we don't have to all the time. I was coaching someone that I trained that was working on reducing defective rates in his organization for his process. He went and described all the work he did to create a value chain. I asked him then, what value did he gain from actually creating that value stream map? He said, well, none. I said, why'd you do it? Now, value stream mapping could be very applicable if you're looking at the workflow, if you're trying to reduce the time it takes something to do something. However, for non-conformance rate, it's often not necessary. So that's what I'm suggesting, is you don't have to use Lean or Six Sigma tools all the time. Use the right tool at the right time. Got measurement system analysis, drill down. The one I want to focus on is wisdom of the organization. Now, one of the methodologies is statement 6.6, which is the use of cause and effect diagram. So in this case, we might brainstorm, and in order to reduce lead time, say, well, I think there could be a difference between lead time between the 4 facilities that are providing this particular product to customers. Well, that's something good to know. Now, if we went back and analyzed some data to see if that particular thinking is significant, we could then create maybe a visualization of the situation. We got the output and input, and then we revert the effects through box plot, marginal plot. Now we could also conduct a hypothesis test to see if a visualization tool was significant. So if we have output is continuous, the input is categorical, we got mean equality test, and we got 4 different facilities, analysis of variance, analysis of mean, or multiple comparisons could be used. So this clickable roadmap can be useful for organizations to determine what tool is appropriate at one point in time when conducting this roadmap. I highlighted earlier, I believe, that in this roadmap we can gain more details of how to execute some of the concepts that are talked about through the Integrated Enterprise Excellence Volume 3 or the Project Execution Guide. What I'm going to be doing now is returning back to my PowerPoint deck. During our presentation of the clickable IEE to make roadmap, we talked about 3 tools. In wisdom of the organization, I talked about cause and effect diagram, also talked about visualization and hypothesis testing. So I'm going to provide a little bit of a picture on what this might look like. So I'm showing on this slide the figure 16.6 from Volume 3 of Integrated Enterprise Excellence. Now, for our particular situation, we're going to say the effect is lead time, process, output, response, and that the team came up with manufacturing sites being one of the potential causes that could impact the 30,000 foot level lead time response. Figure 18.3 in Volume 3 shows a dot plot or a marginal plot. Instead of diameter, I'm looking at lead time for our situation and the sites, because that came out of the brainstorming session. Well, it looks like from this graphic that site number 4 has a lower lead time. An analysis of mean shows statistical significance in that site number 4, the average time for lead time is significantly lower than the average lead time for all the facilities put together. So let's consider, as part of our improvement for this particular project, we want to have all sites follow the procedures in step number 4. So this is what we do. So next we're going to examine the lead time 30,000 foot level metric to see if there was a demonstrated Y response enhancement from this process change. That is, we changed an X and we wanted to see if it affect Y in the relation Y as a function of X. So that's what I'm going to be discussing as the next agenda topic, using the 30,000 foot level app to illustrate enhancements to a 30,000 foot level process response metric. Figure 10.2 for Management 2.0 illustrates the change from our project. So now I'm going to demonstrate how to create the 30,000 foot level metric using the app that we've been talking about. If you recall, I uploaded another data set that we didn't use earlier. And that's at figure 10.2. Notice how the individual's chart of the mean data went out of control downward. So we cannot make a predictive statement. Well, that's not bad news. That could be good news. So if you notice here in the snippet, we've got two different processes, process 1 and 2. We also made a change on this particular date here. So what we want to do now is we want to stage our column. We're going to stage it on week ending, and we're going to stage it by a date. So the date we're going to pick is the one in the upper right hand corner of that spreadsheet. So if we scroll upward, we can now see how this particular 30,000 foot level metric showed an improvement. Now instead of over 16% non-conformance rate, and now it's 0.7. So I return now to my PowerPoint presentation. A point that's worthy of mention is control. So in a traditional Lean Six Sigma deployment, control mechanism likes to be error-proofing, but sometimes that's not possible. So often what's stated in the report out is that we'll go back every once in a while and check to make sure that people didn't start doing things their old ways. However, that's not a realistic or beneficial approach for control. An IEE implementation offers another alternative where we can have a clickable 30,000 foot level report of an improved response that is daily updated and could be checked periodically, for example, daily or weekly, by anyone in the organization who has authorization. So if there's a degradation in the process, then timely action should be undertaken. The next topic in the agenda I'm going to be talking about is how to have a long-lasting business management system that's consistent with Deming management philosophy, Baldrige Award, ISO, and so on. So I make a bold claim in Management 2.0 preface. I state that IEE can accomplish QHSE, ISO 9000, TQM, Baldrige Award criteria, Shingle Prize criteria, Association for Manufacturing Excellence Award. It can be beneficial even to the Toyota Production System and QMS, all at one time. Now that's a bold statement. But that's what I'm going to share with you. And how is that accomplished? Through an enterprise performance reporting system of IEE. So Chapter 6 from Leadership System 2.0 describes an IEE behind the firewall implementation of an integrated from an EPRS system, Enterprise Performance Reporting System, in an organization. So this EPRS implementation would include automatic 30,000 foot level metrics updates in an IEE value chain. So in Chapter 6 of Leadership System 2.0, I make reference to figure 6.4, which is an enterprise value chain of a hospital. So I'm going to be walking through what I would suggest this hospital have relative to clickability going through this value chain. So if you click on produce and deliver services in the enterprise level, you would get a drill down that would show the metrics and processes associated with that particular function. Now, if we look at some drill downs of that particular function, one thing we might look at is length of stay. And here we have a 30,000 foot level chart. Now, if you look down on this particular report out further, you can actually change the status of this particular metric as a whole for a color, not any individual values. And you could change it to red, yellow, or green. This one doesn't have any associated with it. Now, if you're clicking on the processes that are associated with this function, leads to the emergency department. Now, again, you see the metrics and processes associated with that particular function in the hospital. Now, if you were to click on governance, one of the things that you would want to see is what is the enterprise improvement plan that the team and leadership decide to work on for improving the hospital metrics overall. If you'd like to also see the enterprise improvement plan, the status of those projects that are aligned to that are supposed to be improved through the project improvement efforts. So from this project reporting, you would like to see what the PowerPoint summary slides look like, and also what the 30,000 foot level metrics look like. Notice that you can, as part of that PowerPoint presentation of the status, you can have the 30,000 foot level metrics included as a clickable entry in that presentation. So the metrics that are mentioned are timely. They can't be more than a day old. What you'd like to see from that enterprise improvement plan is a change in the average value of a satellite level metrics, in this case EBITDA. You can see how it transitioned to a higher level performance, and the way you accomplish that is through the execution of those projects on the right hand side of this chart. The next what I'll be doing is summarizing IEEE and EPRS that I've talked about in this session. So, to reiterate, I'm suggesting that the IEEE system fulfills all these requirements that are listed on this page, including DEMI's management philosophy, Ballard, Gerard, and so on. I think I've demonstrated how this IEEE system can address all the items that I think are effective management attributes. Now, this particular table is referenced in figure 0.1 in both Management 2.0 and Leadership System 2.0 in the preface. This chart describes how IEEE does a much better job for the attributes that are listed than the MBA program, traditional Six Sigma, traditional Lean, or the Balanced Scorecard. I like to highlight how Appendix A of Leadership System 2.0 provides more than 80 additional IEEE tool application descriptions. Now, often someone appreciates the value of the techniques described in Management 2.0 and Leadership System 2.0. However, this person often is not able to gain, are not able to deploy it within their organization. Perhaps they're in the operations level, they're not high enough in the organization. So this book reader needs to gain buy-in from others for an IEEE deployment to occur in their organization. Now, an approach that typically will not work, and basically this is too big of an enchilada divider to swallow. The IDB promotes state that their boss or decision maker should read these books so that they can then see the benefits that our organization can gain from implementing IEEE. So, another approach is offered within this link that's shown here, IEEE explanation to others. And this web page provides 3 suggestions that could be used, which would provide a smaller bite enchilada approach for explaining the system and benefits. So this page describes 3 different ways of explaining the situation to others. First, by sharing a book-described concept that seems to be very important and germane to an organization, describing the value of a 30,000-foot level reporting, alternative to maybe a red, yellow, green scorecard, a table number, or whatever, or KPI. Determine how to resolve leadership's pain. So in this session, I basically described 2 situations for this IEEE EPRS work. So I provided a free app and the link to that free app and how you could use that free app for basically any type of process output response that you may have. I'd venture to say invariably you'll get more information if you looked at the output of your response from a 30,000-foot level perspective than any way you've done in the past. Now the second situation is how do you implement an IEEE EPRS system as was described in Chapter 6 of Leadership System, Leadership System 2.0. Now this requires software to do this behind the organization's firewall. And what I'm suggesting this software should have is an IEEE value chain that's 24/7 accessible, which offers 30,000-foot level reporting and process documentation transparent throughout the organization. 30,000-foot level value chain metrics that are automatically updated, for example, daily, and organization's EIP that shows alignment of 30,000-foot level metric improvement efforts that will enhance the organization's mean monthly reported financials. A means to track improvement project efforts so that all authorized in an organization can see both the status of projects and the current performance of projects, 30,000-foot level metrics that are to be improved from the project's execution. Now, for the second piece, people could just do this on their own, create the software. And that's okay. Or you could talk to me about other details of this implementation and how they might be able to accomplish the second item that we discussed in Chapter 6. So I'm revisiting the objectives. Then is we able to describe how to select process improvement projects that benefit the big picture, use the benefit of a clickable to make project selection roadmap so the best tool is used at the right time, how you can use this free app that we've been talking about, how to best show and quantify an improvement project, and then also how to create this overall system. Basically, the agenda we walked through, next would be answering questions. So I want to point out, for a free copy of the PowerPoint presentation, you can send your request to my email address there, or give us a call. I'll respond to all requests. So if you do not get a timely response from me, please give me a call or check your spam filter, because sometimes my emails end up in spam. So looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll entertain questions now.
Okay, thanks, Forrest. So we've had a pretty steady stream of questions here. I've got a couple here that are queued up already. One of them asked for, perhaps this was some confusion. They wanted to have a link to a recorded session of the webinar, Audit Like a Leader, Communication and Leadership in Auditing. Is that something you did, or?
Not me.
Okay, well, we'll send the guy a note and see if we can help that. Okay, another one. Is the IEEE chart builder applied for unilateral tolerances?
So for the IEEE chart builder built for unilateral tolerances, I'm not sure exactly what they mean by unilateral tolerances. If it's got a situation, keep in mind, my major focus is looking at the output of processes, and I want to really make improvement processes when they're beneficial, when it's beneficial for the organization. That's the primary objective to what I'm doing here. Now, if you don't have any specifications to it for the output, so you have to have a way of measuring the output of the process. You got to get data over time. That's what's very important. And it needs to be in a spreadsheet format like I showed you earlier with the that app that I have. So if we got monthly data or we got weekly data, that's fine. And then we want to present it either in attribute format, individual format, no subgrouping or subgrouping. So if they got a specification, then we can address the percentage non-conformance specification. And whether it's, I guess it's whether unilateral or not. If they can go in and get the metric in one number, then we can do that.
I think maybe what he was getting at was that most of your charts have, they don't stop at 0. In other words, they're unilateral would mean you can't go into the negative numbers. You can't go below the bottom. So you'd only have a top.
No. Yeah. Oh, no,
we
can handle that. Yeah, for example, let's say, for example, lead time. You can't get a minus number on lead time.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's the kind of situation he's talking about. Now, it could be very small numbers. So what these we built into that app that I showed you is I can do a log normal distribution. So now log normal distribution often fits in lead times. Okay, because it's bounded by 0, it doesn't go to plus and minus infinity.
Okay, I think that answered the question though, that it will go. It can be stopped on one side and still work.
Yeah.
I need to explain something here. A number of people are saying how to get the recertification units. You will get an email in 24 hours. The email will document your participation tonight. That will give you the recertification units. That's the documentation. The email you will get in 24 hours. Okay, so a couple more here. There's one that seems kind of strong here. So, and there were two different questions. One of them was, the concepts are great, but I keep thinking about privacy and security of the data. The software sounds beautiful, and I think it would be important to emphasize some sort of need for organizations to have this information in a private and secure location that workers may not share freely outside the organization. How do you secure the data when people are using your app?
Okay, that's a good question. The app is just dealing with individual numbers. So now you're looking at it, the app that I show you, the free app, okay, you just got numbers you're looking at. So that's in the cloud. But if you, for what your situation is, what I was alluding to, that's what the EPRS system does. Okay, it resides on a server that's behind your firewall. Okay.
Oh,
and
so it's loaded on their server.
What's that?
It's loaded on their server.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So for all the function I was just describing with that EPRS, in Chapter 6, that's all on your server behind the firewall. But you're using something similar to what I had as a free app, but it's behind your firewall. And then it would get automatic update. That's not free. Okay. You pay
so if you want the software loaded in your company, you then have to buy it. But you can use the app in the cloud for free.
That's right. You don't need Minitab or anything else or Excel.
Okay.
Well, you need Excel
Okay.
and get files, but yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good. All right. So the PDF you're referring to, I've been telling people that they should email you to find out where that came from. Can you tell us where the PDF was published?
Well, okay. Let's see. So the PDF is mentioned in the book. Okay, let's see. What's the best way? So now, okay, if you go in,
So tell us walk us through where you're going here.
okay, no, I'm trying to get back to the, let's see, like here, okay? So now, if I'm going to go in now, is to...
This is the app, right?
Yeah, and what I'm trying to do here, let's see if I move this over here. No, I don't want to stop sharing. I'm afraid if I click over here, I guess I don't need that. Well,
so
yeah, maybe I can
app,
move this over somewhere.
Is the PDF file something you can email to people?
Well, I'm giving you a lot easier. You don't have to go through all that. Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Oh, anyway, okay, I'm going to assume I don't need this anymore. Okay, so now I can get to it. So what I'm doing is right now something. All I'm doing is now. This would be smartersolutions.com.
Okay.
And then you can say slash.
Go to your website.
It's in the book too, so it's really easy to find. So then I'm going to look at IEE article. See how it did IEE article?
IEE-article, okay? And
okay.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, then they can download it. All right.
Because if you scroll down, then you can see, you know, I pull that figure and so on. And this just gets discussion in the book too.
Okay, great. Got another question here though. What if management does not agree with this approach? What would you do?
Oh, well, that's a real easy question. Okay, so it's a matter of going in and getting on the radar screen. So what I'm suggesting, first off, you just don't say, hey, read this book or whatever, what I'm doing. Okay, that's not the effective way of doing it. But what you really want to do is looking, how do you convince others, right? And the first approach involves sharing of a presented concept. I'm going to present 3 approaches, okay, that you can do. And then I talked about, remember, eating a big enchilada, you don't want to do it in one bite. So I'm going to describe 3 approaches to this line of thinking where you start out small, okay? And I'll call approach 1. Now, approach 1 involves sharing of the presented concept in this webinar that you believe your organization is experiencing and could benefit from the IEE methodology. Okay? Now, first you want to do is request a copy of the presentation from me. Locate the presentation slide where your traditional business practice metric was discussed and an IEE solution was presented. So I'm suggesting you say, man, that's us. It could be scorecards, strategic planning, or whatever. What do you see in this presentation that you really think could apply to you? Okay? So then from this slide, you note the book and section of a book that was shown on the slide, which provides more execution details. So it could be scorecarding or it could be strategic planning, whatever. Then you purchase the Kindle version of the reference book. Now, in a PowerPoint presentation to your manager or others, you show an example of the current practice. Maybe you're showing your red, yellow, green scorecards, ocean planning, or something else. And then you discuss and document the issues described with the current approach. So let's say, hey, this is a metric that you showed last week. What the heck are you going to do with it? So you want them to say, hey, there's some problems. Then you want to share a screenshot of the section of the Kindle book that shows how IEEE addressed, you know, this particular situation. Then you ask others that are, well, then you go in and say, well, you don't want to just say, how does this apply to us? You want to say, you know, you might have, the leadership is not going to buy into this. So instead, what you do is you say, pretend that you're the CEO of the organization. And then, if you were the CEO, and you wanted to go in and implement this technique to the fullest in 6 months by waving a magical wand, would you do it? And if you would, then the thing is, the question gets to be, is how do you present that to the management, other ones, okay? So then, so what I'm suggesting is you would want to go in and get perhaps a session with me to discuss how you would apply this technique and if it would be beneficial to you. So it's not, you cannot hardly sell this concept yourself. But if you go to our home page, you'll see how you could schedule a half-an-hour Zoom meeting with me to actually discuss application of these techniques.
Okay. Okay.
Or you can send me an email. We do it. And if you have any, this just came live this week, so there may be some, you know, it takes a while to get things on bug-wise. Or you can email me, you know, and then we can set up a time where we can talk about it.
So
now,
got
that's
another
one
question.
approach.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And second approach could be you maybe want to go in is look at addressing particular scorecarding. So let's say you got a red, yellow, green scorecard and you say this is not good. And so take one of the metrics, put together a 30,000-foot level chart for that metric, and then you put a PowerPoint presentation that necks out the benefits of 30,000-foot level charting over the traditional approach. You know, and then the third and final is for the, looking at determining the pain that leadership might have. So you could go in and then present that effective attributes chart that I have and ask them if they have any issues with any of these points. And then again, you ask if they say, yes, I have problems with it. Then again, you try to set up a Zoom meeting with me to discuss how you can benefit from the methodology. That make sense?
Okay, I think so. If you have more questions, you will get Forrest's email in the notice you receive in 24 hours. So you can email him directly. Got one last question, Forrest. Is the software only in English?
Right now it's only in English, but that doesn't mean it needs to be. If I get enough demand somewhere else in another language, you know, I'll do it. You know what I mean? We can convert that. I don't think that's the end of the world since it's, you know, but right now the software is just in English. But again, if there's an adequate demand, I'll see what I can do to change it because it's nothing that would be naturally restricted to English.
All right. You know, we're getting close to the end now. I want to make sure that everybody understands they're going to get an email in 24 hours. It will have documentation for our use. It will have Forrest's email address, and you may send him a note to ask for any questions that have not been answered here. So, Forrest, can we kind of go down to the last couple slides there? You have the deck.
Yeah, sure. And again, I want to highlight if, for example, that you don't hear from me and you send me an email, please go in and give me a call or check your spam filter because I tend to spam sometimes. So
I know that just does that.
I hate for you to be mad at me and when I tried hard, you know.
All right, so here's the content. All right, so at this point we're gonna stop the recording. Okay. So we have some more to finish up afterward, though.
Is this what you want to see?
Yes.